For those of y'all who are just tuning in, who just walked in the same cover, you are at the All Eyes on DC show. The All Eyes on DC show, for those of y'all who don't know, is an effort by this grassroots journalist, Sam K. Collins, to pretty much put on Front Street what it is that black Africans in DC are doing to eradicate white supremacy and to pretty much make us self-determined people. Tonight's guests are Denise, Rolark and Stuart Anderson, co-chairs of the MLK Peace Walking Parade. Before we bring them up on the stage, I just have a few things to say about the importance of this show. This show tonight is going to serve two purposes. The first purpose is pretty much to present a case for what organizing looks like and pretty much setting up a goal and working toward that goal and focusing on that goal no matter what. And the second part of this show is just for us to reflect on the legacy of Dr. King. The real Dr. King, the Dr. King after 1965, who realized that civil rights was not the end-all be-all in the destruction of the powers that subjugated us as black African people. That's the Martin Luther King that I've been teaching my students about. That's the Martin Luther King Jr. that I often reflect on when I think about how he traveled to Ghana and while he worked with Kwame Nkrumah. I think about the MLK who conferred with Elijah Muhammad at one point. I think about the MLK who, in his mountaintop speech on the night before his assassination, called for an economic withdrawal, called for putting money in black banks, called for pretty much boycotts of corporations that were subjugating black people. And understand in Memphis at that time, you had sanitation workers who were working under precarious situations. They were working under very dangerous conditions, and 2 of them died. That's what prompted the activities in Memphis. So we're talking about the intersection of capitalism, we're talking about the intersection of militarism, and we're talking about racism, all of which work together. And don't get it twisted. There are people out here who will often try to tell you that racism is not at the base of our suffering, that capitalism is the base of it. And to an extent that is true, but that assessment is more nuanced than that. Capitalism is evidence of racism, because in capitalism, people have to be the pawns, and people have to be those who take control of the pawns. And MLK understood that when he asked us to unite as one people and collect our dollars and be economic powerhouses. And in the tradition of studying MLK, we're going to bring our 2 guests up tonight, Denise Rolark and Stuart Anderson, to talk to us about the MLK Day Peace Walk and Parade. Its present, its future, and definitely its past. Let's give them a hand, family. I gotta go around the game, y'all, please. Come on, y'all. Listen, y'all, you fixed the mics tonight, y'all. You fixed the mics here, y'all. We almost didn't have a show, y'all. Come on, man. We did it all by ourselves, family. Ingenuity.
We'd have been in here shouting at each other.
I'm telling you, come on, man.
We wasn't gonna have no show. We was gonna have a show.
Regardless, because it's ingenuity, it's patience. All right. Thank you again for coming on the show. I reached out to Denise about 10 days ago, just really thinking about what topic we needed for the show. And, you know, this came in my mind after writing a Washington Informer article about the MLK Day Peace Walking Parade and actually sitting in a meeting with all y'all. It was about 70 people, just about. Could one of y'all, if you don't mind breaking down, you know, just what entities were in that room on that Saturday? I believe we were over at Gateway DC, right? Gateway DC, okay. So we were at the Gateway Pavilion, on St. Elizabeth's campus, about 70 people, all in that room with one goal in mind, just putting this event on that's going to be on Monday. Talk to us about who was in the room.
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank Sam for hosting this show. You know, I've been on the show several times. I think the last time I was here with Yep, that's right. And so it's always a pleasure to be able to come on and talk about black folk and black folk business. So, as Sam has said, we had a wonderful meeting where we had like about 70 people in the room, and that's what happens. We'll start off in like July, June, and July or August, and it's a few of us, and as we continue to meet, it gets bigger and bigger. More people come to the table. We got to wrestle with them with ideas. But from that group, we had organizations like the Alliance of Concerned Men, 100 Fathers, Mama Safe Haven. Let me see who else we had in the room. We had the Stand Up DC, Free DC, People's Movement, Stop Police Terror. Some Black Lives Matter members were in the room, a few commissioners, not just from Ward 8, but from east of the river. This event is actually open to everybody. We had members from the mayor's commission on MLK, Miss Senior DC, Sam Ford. We had the great Sam Ford in the room, right?
Wow.
He's on,
Channel 7.
yeah,
Okay.
from Channel 7. In fact, Denise and I were on Channel 7 this morning just to talk about what we're going to talk about here a little bit. We're going to have more liberty here than we had there, though. You know, that's what happened, you know. They co-opt stuff, they're going to twist it, they're going to cut it, they're going to dice it, but right here you're going to get the real. So that's some of the people who we had in the room with us. Some of the core people are individuals, not necessarily organizations. And I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out people like Macon Johnson, Claudette Moore, Total Sunshine, Peggy Gannon. It's hard times to say her name, but that's just something. And then Bob Stuart. Bob does a lot of stuff for us, and definitely Keita Williams, who is our kind of like our technical person who does our website. We got a phenomenal website, so I just want to shout the website out.
Please do.
Visit us at www.MLKHolidayDC.org, and that's www.MLKHolidayDC.org.
That's a bet. So, you know, it sounds like, and these are all names, you know, I've heard most of these names. They've been in the community for a long time. They bring various perspectives. What were a few things you say that y'all could agree on, you know, just coming to the table back last summer? You know, what were the things y'all knew y'all couldn't go into this thing without?
So, first of all, Sam, this is my first time on your show. Stuart says he's been here many times. This is my first time, so
Okay,
I'm celebrating. I'm
It ain't gonna be the
excited.
last, though.
Yes,
It ain't gonna be the last.
yeah.
But you know, I have to go back 13 years ago when we first started the Peace Walk, because we knew at that time that there was not going to be a parade, and we didn't want the place named after Martin Luther King, one of the first in the nation, street, formerly Nichols Avenue, changed to Martin Luther King Avenue thanks to my stepmother, who was a member of the DC City Council at the time, to not have an event honoring Dr. King. We were one of the first, so how could we not do that? And the other thing we realized was that we didn't have the capacity at that time to do a parade. But we knew, Keith Silver, Yango Sawyer, myself, knew that we, if nothing else, we were just going to walk up Martin Luther King Avenue. We also knew that there were organizations in this community that have been actively working to end violence. You know, this violence that we have been realizing over the last few years, and it's been a long time. There were organizations like the Peaceaholics, 100 Ceasefire, Don't Smoke the Brothers and Sisters, Alliance of Concerned Men. There were so many organizations that were doing similar work in similar communities, but they never really came together. And we felt as though if we could just come together on one day to show the world that we stand together against violence in honor of Dr. King, that we would accomplish something. After that day, you go your separate ways, you do whatever. But on this particular day, we all stood united. And that's the one thing that continues has continued to bring us together over the last 13 years. And so when we bring that first meeting together, that's the mission. It's how can we get as many people at the table who have a similar mission, a similar purpose, and the goal or the belief factor is that we have to focus on nonviolent resolutions to building community. And so that's really what it is.
Definitely. What I like about it is that it's very intergenerational. You know, I noticed a lot of elders in the room. I saw not a few actually, a considerable number of millennials, especially among Stop Police Terror Group, Black Lives Matter, and a few of the other activists in the area. And I like this year how we've incorporated the youth piece with the writing contest, and even just, you know, speaking with the parents of the youth who lost their lives to gun violence. You know, if we can just talk about those elements, I'm particularly interested in just the young people. You know, what was the conversation around transferring that knowledge about the history of the peace walk and the parade down to them?
So I'm going to let Stuart ask him to answer part of that as far as the current history. But if you go back historically 38, 39 years ago, when the first Martin Luther King parade took place, the folks that made that happen, again, Calvin Rolark, Rolark, and Petey Green, radio personalities. You've seen the movie about Petey. If you haven't seen the movie, you need to check it out.
That's a great movie. Yeah. Don Cheadle did my man.
You gotta see that, and it kind of tells you, you know, what happened after the riots and how Petey was able to pull people together, and that was what really led them to this one work to change the name of the street, to have this parade, to push for a national holiday. You'll see a lot of that in the movie. But the purpose really at that time was to allow young people. I mean, that parade has always been focused on young people. And one of the things that frustrates me a little bit, and I'm handing this over to Stuart, is that, you know, a student that participates in a marching band can get a full ride to college. A full ride to college. And so any of us who grew up in the public school system in DC know that at the time, every school had a marching band. And one of our top marching bands was Shaw, you know, McKinley. Now, I went to Coolidge. We didn't have a marching band. We just had a drum line, you know. And that, I mean, it's good, but we didn't have the band. So, and I used to go to, you go to football games so that you could see the band. And over years, we lost that. So, you know, historically, those bands participate in the parade, and everybody knows when we get ready to plan this parade, I'm like, find the bands. And I think we have gone from like 4 marching bands to this year 13. And I think movies like Drumline have helped, and then also us putting the pressure on. We got to bring that back. Music, you know, is important when it comes to not only discipline, learning, and opportunities in higher education. So that's why it's important for us to have young people participating in this parade. But I'll let Stuart talk a little bit more.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about that, the music piece, because a question just came up in my mind. But Brother Stuart, by all means.
Hey, look, we can bounce around and come back, because I'm not going to not talk about all the young people that we have at the table now, and not just because Tia Jackson is my sister, but when Tia Jackson comes to the table, she brings a host of young ladies to the table that Denise has fell in love with, and that's a dance group. So before in answering that question, I want to talk about some of the stuff that we have added to the pie. So Denise gave us a wonderful kind of overtone of how we got to where we are a little bit. And so it was this peace walk. And so I came on board 7 years ago with Yango Soyeo and Keith Silver saying, Stu, you got to come out and help us with this thing. Come on out to it. And I came out and everything. And I ain't have nothing with me. But they knew about the work that I was doing with young people. And so one of the first things they said when they saw me, where your youngsters at? You ain't bringing youngsters with me? And so the next year, I brought some youngsters with me. And they was like, you ain't bring, why y'all ain't got no banner? We could have got you a banner. I said, okay, we'll have a banner next time. And then we brought it back. And as time went on, you know, we continued to do more and more and more. And one year we had this idea that we needed to do something to to stir up the energy. And so that one year, because I'm a returning citizen, I had conversations with a number of the leading individuals in the city. At that time, Charles was the director for the office, Mayor's Office on Returning Citizens. Along with Charles, there was Courtney Stuart, and I believe AllEyes was a part of that piece, and Tyrone Parker. And so we simulated a march across a bridge to join into the parade. And so they marched out of Southwest and came across Frederick Douglass's bridge one year, and that was big, you know, and met the parade and then joined the parade as we proceeded up the hill. You know, then the following year, because I was really inspired, right, I said, man, we need to dip inside of Barry Farms and everything. And so everybody didn't like that idea. And so the committee itself didn't do it. I said, well, I'm going to send a cadre of people in here. We're going to bring some of them people out to them. And then we came out and we joined the parade the next year. And so we kept doing stuff like that to stir up and bring young people in. And so it's been our goal to continue to bring young people in. We'll have Jeremy Hill joining us this year. She's going to come out and help out. We got Dominique, and I can't remember Dominique. These not really, I guess John's a millennial. Yeah. You know, but these some like, I don't know, what you call young folk after millennials? What was that? Gen Zs? Okay, so we're gonna bringing in some Gen Zs and the millennials now. And say it again?
Z.
Gen Z?
Yeah, like
Gen Z.
Generation Z.
Oh, Generation Z. Okay, I'm learning here. You know, I gotta learn this stuff, right? You know, so now when I go back out there and someone say, yeah, okay, you little Gen Z. They gonna say, how'd you learn that? I say, I was on Sam P show. All eyes on DC.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we've done a number of different interviews, but we had we created a prayer breakfast. Joey Scott.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so when we just sit in the room, right? So we meet, we sit in the room, we talking to her, somebody say, well, what about this? Can't we do that? And people be saying, oh, that's a good idea. I be like, all right, what you need to do it? How can we help you? and so thus was born a prayer breakfast. We've been trying to do that essay contest for a number of years.
Okay.
And like, was two years ago, I think, was the first time we talked about the mayor's, Marion Barry's youth leadership doing it. And it was okay, but it didn't take off. But then last year, it was phenomenal. And after that, you know, this year, it was just as great, just as good. We had a service where we gave the winners their items. Total Sunshine, we got to give a shout out for her. She supports that in a big way, bigger than I think I do individually or Denise.
Yeah, Total Sunshine. She has a program for the valedictorians across the city.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So, you know, just more about the kids. The program, the essay topic, from what I recall, was about statehood. Okay.
No, it's about voting rights.
Sorry.
Hey,
Forgive me.
that's a very different.
That's my news brain. So voting rights for 16 to 17-year-olds pretty much, right? So, you know, how did you feel about that?
They were split, ironically.
Okay.
Literally, there were 9 winners, 3 winners in each age group, and pretty much they were split down the middle. They read, as you know, last year we had a performance by the children, we did a presentation, we had some other stuff going on. But this year we did something different that was better. We got a chance to listen to the essays from all of the winners. We kind of read them and know what was in them, but the general public didn't get it last year, but they got it this year. And I thought that worked well, where they got up and they read their piece. One of the striking ones came from one of the youth mayors, Janaea. Janaea. Yeah, I apologize, but she did a phenomenal piece. man, she's got a strong voice. She's gonna be a great leader as she matures and continues to do the work that she's doing currently through the mayor's youth leadership or Mary Barry's youth leadership.
Yeah, a lot of those young people, I know a couple I can think off the top of my head, just seeing them when they go to school, when they come back, they often end up doing a whole lot of great things around the city, just in government and even outside of government.
On that note, I just wanted to add that this year marks the 40th anniversary of the Marion Barry Youth Leadership Institute. So not only will you hear from some of those winners at the parade, if they're not too frozen on the stage, to read their essays. It's going to be cold. We're trying to get ready for it. But they will be spending the entire year celebrating the accomplishments of some of the folks who started with the Youth Leadership Institute back, 40 years ago. Daryl Sabs. I mean, it's a bunch of folks that a lot of us know who came through Youth Leadership Institute. And then also the two folks who lead it now, Kimberly Hughes, Norman Nixon, and Philip, I can't think of Philip's last name, but all of them are graduates of the Institute. And so the way that they are really training young people, and to come to a program at Department of Employment Services where we recognize the winners of an essay contest, and the room is full. The room is full of young people. Says a lot, because a lot of times, when we sit around the table, we come up with these ideas, and somebody says, well, let's do an essay contest. And then there's the assumption, young people don't read, young people don't write. They have 46 entries this year into that essay contest. I mean, we young people disprove all of the misinformation that we put out there about them. And I'm so glad that there is a Marion Barry Youth Leadership Institute to make sure that young people can hear from young people about what young people are doing, as opposed to listening to some of us old folks who want to talk about what young folks aren't doing. But they are doing a lot, and so I appreciate them for their participation and through the parade, and understanding, the importance of connecting them, like you said earlier, to the life, the legacy, and the message of Dr. King. We cannot forget that. We don't, when we get upset because generations of our young folks, and I'm one of those at one point, you don't know your history. But we realize once you know and understand your history, it helps to direct your path. And so, it's important for us to make sure that we use every opportunity that we have to teach young people about who they are, where they came from, and again, hats off to Mayor's Youth Leadership Institute for doing that.
Yeah, let's give them a hand, y'all. Let's give them a hand. This is the year of anniversaries, and just what I'm looking for. Just points in time. So, 40th anniversary of the Marion Barry Youth Leadership Institute. You have the Informant's 55th anniversary. You have 400 years since Africans came to Jamestown, so 60, right? So just a lot going on. I think it's very pivotal that we pay attention to that and we take the time once again to reflect.
And Dr. King's 90th.
Exactly. So that was Tuesday, Dr. King's 90th birthday. He would have been 90 had he not been taken down, unfortunately, many, many years ago. So I want to pivot, because earlier you mentioned a peace walk, and then you mentioned the parade 38 years ago. So there's a bit of history right there that, we just want to go down memory lane real quick, make sure that the audience is all on the same page about just how the parade itself started, and then where the peace walk fell into that. We mentioned the peace walk part. We went into that, but just wanted to the parade itself, where it all started. If we could just walk through that history.
I'm going to get to Denise in a minute, but I want to correct something. So,
please do.
The 40 continues. So this thing started 40 years ago. We just missed a beat in there somewhere. A couple beats. And so that's why we're celebrating 38. But in actuality, this began 40 years ago. And so that's another milestone.
You're right, 79. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
The article.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
okay.
it.
Respect.
You know, that's
Respect.
it. And so I can talk about a lot of it, right? But I want to let Denise talk about it because not only can she talk about it, she can talk about it from a different perspective as a little child in somebody's house trying to build something.
Well, I would love to be able to say I was a little child, but
Teenager.
I was not a little child. So if I keep saying that, I'll be telling my age. But I'm very proud of still being here. So, but yeah, you know, at that, in Dr. King was assassinated in 1968. And after that, you know, we had one of the worst economic rebellions that many cities experienced. Growing up in DC, for those of us who did grow up in DC, we knew that police brutality was a major issue in the city. Jobs, employment, voting rights. When the young people talk about, you know, voting at 16 or 17 years old, I just graduated from high school and was able to vote in the first election. Because you know, in DC, you couldn't vote for president. You couldn't vote for a city council. We didn't have local elected officials. First local election we had was for school board. And so our first national election occurred in 1972 it was. But anyway, I voted absentee. I was on my way to Hampton, Virginia to go to school. So I voted absentee and I could not wait to vote. Now, there's a whole lot about voting that I think we still need some education to do with our young people, because sometimes, you know, we select a party, we select candidates, you know, when young, we just kind of follow what's happening in our household and whatever. We don't really understand the political process, but that's a whole other conversation. And that's what gets us stuck sometimes in what we do. But at any rate, so, you know, Dr. King was assassinated. We had the economic rebellion here in Washington. You know, the city was torn apart. White folks had already left. Black folks were leaving, going out to, you know, the great Ward 9. And so, you know, the city was suffering. It really was. And so you needed something to bring some kind of hope to communities. And while Martin Luther King, or what was Nichols Avenue at the time, didn't have the same kind of destruction that occurred in places like Georgia Avenue, 14th Street, U Street, H Street, other places across the city, but it had a little bit of that. And so the idea was, you know, we don't have much, but at least we can come together and celebrate, you know, or at least commemorate and honor the life of Dr. King. Plus, you know, there was this major effort, as I said before, to try to get his birthday, or at least the third Monday in January, a national holiday. A major effort with folks like Congressman Conyers and so many others. And so some of the first folks who participated in the parade were like Stevie Wonder, you know, came out. And, you know, he's always been front and center with movements. And Doug Williams was a Grand Marshal. When he was actually a player with the Washington football team.
Okay. All right, okay.
Yeah, good.
That's why they use it.
Exactly.
I can't get it off my lexicon.
Yeah, we'll work on it. But anyway, yeah, so I mean, we had some really great people who actually, and it's funny because the first place the parade started, talking about Berry Farms, it started at Burney Elementary School, which was right by Berry Farms, and it came all the way up Martin Luther King Avenue and ended at Covenant Baptist Church, which I will say, for anybody who's watching, we'd love to have you to join us this Sunday at Covenant Baptist Church, because we always go back to Covenant. That was the beginning, you know, and so the parade ended there. We had a program there. We had young people that participated in the program. The church opened its doors to the community, and they have been doing it ever since, and they'll be doing it again this Sunday. at 10 o'clock.
10 a.m.
And Covenant is located at, we'll get the address for you, but we want to make sure you come. It's like the 4800, 4200 block, I think, of South Cap, Martin Luther King Avenue, or when Martin Luther King and South Capitol split.
Yeah,
Right,
right
when
in the
they
split. Right in the split.
right up at the top of the hill. So, I forgot your question, but anyway, I will continue.
No, you on point.
We're talking about the history.
So the parade happened every year. Then one year, I remember Councilmember Rolark said, the parade had grown so large they decided to move it from Covenant to P.R. Harris. And if you can imagine, that was like a 2.5 mile parade. Amazing. And weather was never an issue. Never. I have photographs of young people marching in the snow.
I was going to say. I
On
was
the
trying
day
to
of the
figure that
parade.
out.
If you don't mind, Denise, if you can just paint a picture for us, like what a parade looks like, feels like on MLK Day, just so that the audience, can get a better idea. You're doing a great job, of course, but I think people really need to know the true MLK Day parade experience.
So we're going to share this answer because he helps to make sure that the lineup is there. Of course, we have this lineup. Sam Ford and I are on stage. We don't know who's walking past us. We just say, look at those wonderful people. They're doing a great job because it gets like that after a point.
Yeah.
But, it has, I love parades. I have to say that. I love parades. You will all see me at the Cherry Blossom Parade. You will see me at the Gay Pride Parade. You will see me at any parade because I love parades. Because it's just such a community sort of family atmosphere. But anyway, for the MLK Parade, you have the official part of it, where you've got your mayor, your city council members, and they're coming by. Well, Mayor Bowser is not she doesn't come by in cars. I mean, she brings her whole team, usually about 100 people, and they walk down the street in their green t-shirts, and they're waving and throwing out, they do this at every parade, so they come out partying.
Yeah.
But you have one year the parade happened, and we were like, where's this? The police with all the lights and the V-shaped, and we're like, where did they come from? We didn't invite them. Very impressive though. I was thoroughly impressed that they were right in the front of the parade, but sort of made a good beginning. You have your color guard. Okay. Last year we decided we were going to have a community color guard. We're a little rebellious in some ways. We don't want the official thing, so we said, okay, we're going to have a community color guard. Somebody marching the red, black, and green flag. It was all good. Right. So, and we try to, we didn't work really hard on it this year, but in the past, it's been a little tough, but we always try to have a clergy front because we want to remember Dr. King was a man of faith. He was a preacher, to the heart. And so we always want to try to have a group of faith leaders in the front of the parade as well. But after that, it's live. Yeah. This year we're going to have the Buffalo Soldiers. We decided we're going to pull them from the back, bring them up to the front, because we have to remember the importance of our history. We've got cars, we've got, and it's it's diverse in many ways because, we know that Dr. King was loved and appreciated in every nation around the world. People of all colors and all nationalities, all faiths, love Dr. King. And so we try to bring that diversity, and it's not, we don't have to work at it anymore. Because people will come out and say, look, we want to participate. So we've got, the Chinese dragon, and we've got, the Bolivian dancers, and we've got all kinds of folks. And
I definitely
but it's a
saw
lot
that.
of walking.
I definitely saw that piece, and when I went to the meeting that time, in it being diverse and just how do we bridge that gap, right, between you know, not saying, of course, you know, I'm of a very radical belief. It's not really incumbent upon us to make them understand, you know, other groups, our plight and stuff like that. Of course, we got to work on our own. That I'm of that belief to an extent. It's a bit more nuanced, right? But at the very core, that's what I believe, you know. But with Dr. King being that figure that everybody can access because of his message, right? And just bringing these diverse groups into the fold. With DC being the way that it is, it's changing demographically, and just, you know, these messages about war date and crime, you know, and just, you know, violence and all of that. How do we bridge that gap, you know, just making it so that it's not one day where people are all coming together to Southeast enjoying a good time, but we make it where people know that they can come there and they can get that same family-like atmosphere, you know, and it's a very, you know, it's sort of a tough question, but it came to mind as I'm just listening to you talk, you know, just about Dr. King's legacy and the diversity piece.
So, yeah, I want to give it to her because I know she probably really wants to answer that. But I want to say that there is a dual effort to do a couple of things. It's important. So Denise talked about, I don't know why I'm ringing so much. I'm trying to make sure I don't ring too much. But you're holding the mic.
I'm learning to be a sound guy. I go back there and fix it a little bit.
No. Stay with us. We're gonna work on it, right? So the thing is that she talked about the history. She talked a little bit about how it's arranged at the front, and we can come back to the back. I'm just gonna talk something about that front piece, that clergy piece. She talked about that little V-shaped piece, and that's a whole conversation we should have also. But the clergy piece. I know King. You know, I had an event at my house. I wasn't even there. My children moved all of my stuff into the back room, you know, because I got all these books. So I read a lot of King. I read Malcolm and I read King. But I know King. And King is more of what the world has been teaching. Our children, and I had this conversation, and we should go back and listen to, next year we should have a session in the Rise where we play the clips of the people who had went on the radio and talked about King. I had the opportunity to connect some children with WPFW, and they were on the radio Wednesday morning with Katia. And she was so elated with their responses to her questions. It was a great show. And I say that to say that these children have been exposed to a different Dr. King. And it was why they could connect and relate. They knew more about King. I wanted to say it earlier, but we drove past and I let it go by. But also, it was the children who have been running the essay contest now. You know, so Norm and Kimmery are the leads who helped to pull them together, but they themselves are doing the work. They design the flyers, they do the outreach, there are some other adults or older individuals who help, but they read essays and help to decide who the winners are. And so they're very much enrolled in that. And so from reading stuff that is written, that has some kind of idea about King in it, they begin to learn more about King, and they're able to articulate the things that they're learning about King. And so the procession itself is about trying to tell a story. That's something that most people don't realize that we're trying to do in the back scene. We're trying to lay this piece out visually. We want it to be entertaining. We want it to be educational. And so that's a really important part of how we lay this whole piece out.
So I want to also answer your question about the diversity in Ward 8. And one of the things that I've grown to at least to observe is that we don't really get a chance to see how diverse Ward 8 is. It's a community where a lot of money has been invested. And we're about to see a lot more money invested. And people follow the money. especially people that don't look like us. So, for example, in Ballou High School, once upon a time, one of the principals took an assessment. There were 46 nonprofit organizations operating out of one high school. 46. And so the principal was like, how did we get all these organizations in here? Now, he kicked them all out, which I don't know if that was a good idea either. But a lot of them were white folks,
They didn't look
black
like
folks,
us.
young folks, old folks, you know. So you got, if anybody were ever able to take a look at where the dollars are going and who's chasing those dollars and what they're doing with those dollars, you'll find a very diverse group of community nonprofits operating out of Ward 8. Now again, it was just like when we started the Peace Walk. You had all these organizations doing programs in Ward 8, they just didn't work together. They didn't work together. So now the parade is sort of the comfort level. It's a way to bring a Martha's Table, who has set up its headquarters in Ward 8. Bread for the City, which is coming to Ward 8. You know, all these clinics. I mean, you can think all these organizations from 9 to 5, Sasha Cruz, all of them from 9 to 5 are operating. We got Chase Bank that opened today, you know, in Ward 8. So you got all these institutions now and organizations that are coming. I mean, Ted Leonsis, one of the richest men in the DC area, hangs out now at the entertainment and sports arena because he owns it, right? Like with Events DC. And he's trying to support his new league, the Go-Go's, which are doing pretty well, but as a matter of fact.
I heard, yeah.
Right? They're doing pretty well.
They lost the
So,
last
you know,
2 times I
it
was
is
there.
a diverse community that we don't really see and know about because the, what do you call it? The conversation is focused on the major issue, it is a major issue, which is violence, poverty, housing, health, education, all there were food desert, were all those things. And so and I told Stuart, there's a former council member who really angered me one day because at a community meeting, someone asked her, when are we gonna get more economic development? She said, when the people come, the economic development will follow. I've lived in Ward 8 for 40 years. I don't know what I am if I'm not a people. You know what I'm saying? But the point is, I mean, I think it has been difficult to bring business, but it's coming. We're about to have talking about diversity, we're about to have a Busboys and Poets to open in about 6 months. Bringing Starbucks, I mean, all of these entities are coming to the community. Now, I mean, it's the last frontier of gentrification. And, you know, we have a lot of homeowners, but we've got a whole lot of people who are renters and who are government subsidized residents. And I was, I think, happy to hear that the mayor has now really is moving forward on this Office of East of the River Services. They brought a Ward 8 resident, young millennial, who's gonna run that office. And they're bringing a lot of resources and wraparound services to try to secure people, because when we're gone from there, Ward 7 and 8, we are gone. We are gone. So, you know, I live on Mississippi Avenue. Got my first white neighbor. My husband and I bought the house owned by the last white person on our block. And we bought that house in whatever the year was, 80 something. And so now we have our first white neighbors. I haven't met them.
So it's like a cycle.
I haven't met them. And they're around the
It's a whole
corner,
cycle,
you know,
yeah.
they're coming. And the community has not changed. I mean, we still have our issues. We had a young man shot right in front of my door, you know, this couple of months ago. Young man shot by the police, this year. So we got a lot of problems. And that's what's being played up. And who's afraid of those issues? We are. We're the ones that run away. They're not running away. They're fine. They're gonna come because the property's cheap. right now, even though we've sold our first $1 million home down in Anacostia.
Seriously.
Seriously,
Yeah.
seriously. Near where Mary Berry used to live.
Wow.
You know, down the street from me, the houses are running like $500,000.
Yeah.
Who can afford those?
Yeah, time is a beast.
So-
Okay.
There's diversity in the community, but it takes events like this to bring people out. And when you see who's in that parade, we're not necessarily attracting people who are from other parts of the city. Even if they are, there's some tentacle in Ward 8 that makes them say, like, I need to be a part of this. And so you will see that when you look at those people that are participating in the parade, you're gonna see the diversity that exists in that community right now.
One of the things that we do consciously do is try to bring out the bands, and part of bringing out the bands is about utilizing what's in the school that can bring the students. You know, so the bands, the dancer groups, the cheerleaders, they can then bring out more of the school population. If we can get the band, we get more of the students out to see this thing, out to hear something that they normally don't hear. We are definitely in a position that we are at war. We're at war for the minds of our children. And all of the things that they are left to most of the year is detrimental to their mental growth and development. And so if we can get them out there on the sideline to hear the voice of Dr. King ringing from the top of some van being played across some system repetitively to combat some of the stuff that they go through the rest of the 364, 65 days. You know, this is what this thing is about. To try to transfer that knowledge, to try to transfer the fire, because we don't normally get to hear the fire. We don't normally get to understand the militant king, the defiant king. We don't get a chance. I remember the first time I tried to convince the committee to use an image of a finger pointing, mouth wide open Dr. King. They were like, nah, we don't want to do that. We got to use this smiling king, you know. And so we had an opportunity. That was that year that we ended up doing. One year was all about a global peace, and we started talking about Wangai Muthai and the work she was doing over there, and talking about Gandhi and how King got some ideas about that non-violence from Gandhi. Who knew that? You know, before King started actually, you know, saying something about it. So that's part of what this thing is about, lest we forget. You know, even amidst all of the changes that's coming, there's got to be a voice in the wilderness talking about why we need to honor and lift up ours. You know, I can remember reading where somebody was actually belittling black folk for paying homage to their dead, right? And over in the shadow of that conversation, it was a video or film or something. The ironic piece was somebody was showing this, somebody was trying to teach me something. And so here were people chastising black folk for honoring their dead and all of that, but in the background was this image of some white folk honoring a statue of I think it was Jefferson. I can't remember.
Oh yeah, and a lot of us, that's why the whole critical thinking education piece is very important, because there are a lot of tricks out there, to the point where the tricks pretty much are running on autopilot. So we got our people very caught up in what they're doing and what, it's sort of like we've been conditioned to absolve ourselves of anything that's related to us, to not celebrate our own, right? To not even acknowledge what was done, in the interest of our salvation and just our progression as people. This brings me to my next question, and I'm very confident that both of y'all can answer this. it's about Dr. King's legacy, you know, and I'm speaking as an educator. For 2 or 3 young people who can resonate with Dr. King's legacy and have pride in it, there are probably 1 or 2 people who feel like the whole Dr. King narrative has been played over and over again, you know, and they might feel like Dr. King is not really, I don't want to say a relevant figure, but he's not really somebody who's of significance because he is too out there. He might be the only one that's often talked about. Or it might just be that Dr. King is being talked about so much by the mainstream that his accomplishments, you know, aren't really significant in the minds of young people who are so far removed from those times, who can't really understand the conditions that black people went through that made Dr. King who he was, pretty much. You know, and I've always been curious about how it is, you know, just keeping in line with what you said about his legacy and just educating people, right? In what new way, if there is one, can we teach our young people about Dr. King? Like, just to keep, you know, his memory fresh, just to keep, you know, it fresh in our mind, why it is that he's so significant, and pretty much just to counter all of the whitewashing that was done to pretty much, you know, make him this palatable figure.
We sheep.
Yeah.
We like cattle,
Yeah.
right? So in every group of sheep, every group of cattle, you got a lead. And most people gonna follow that lead. That's how it is in reality. I want to do a shameless plug because I'm gonna answer your question. So I have an organization called Family and Friends of Incarcerated People, FFOIP. I challenge people to go to YouTube and look at some footage that's on YouTube that's about the parade during a real heated election year. And you will see footage of some young children who I have been ministering talking about the parade. And one of the most phenomenal pieces of one of those clips that you'll find is a young lady. It's all of them, they're standing together. Some of them, they doing little dances that they do. And the interviewer is asking them questions. And one of the young ladies, well, all of them kind of ring the same song, was like, man, all them people out here, none of them be having no king signs. They all walking around talking about vote for my mans, but they ain't talking about Dr. King. So the point that I'm making is that we hypocrites. Yeah. And so we gotta figure out how do we keep the hypocrites out of the eyesight of our young folk. When our young folks see that, right, man, you know, I won't be with that. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to keep it 100. They 50 and they out here about their man. They ain't out here for king. So we gotta figure out how we separate some of that. One of the things we did one year, right, was we said, okay, we don't put all them in the back. we don't put them, one year we said we don't put them all together. Then we said we'll put them all together in the back. And we gonna charge them. We trying to do some stuff to purge that stuff out. You know what I mean? And so that's what we gotta do. We gotta purge some stuff out. And the last thing I'll say on that point right there is that, you know, it's so important to have a strong theme. And so those themes is what will either carry, drive, push, or draw in everybody. One year we had I Am a Peacemaker. And everybody was out there saying, I am a peacemaker. You say that to yourself. We had the signs made, and they was dying to get those signs. Give me one. I need at the end, everybody collected them.
So the signs look just like the signs back from that time. Okay.
They look like the I Am a Man sign.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what they look like. The I Am a Man sign, and we did some stuff with them, but they was phenomenal. Then I wouldn't say the next year, but you remember certain things. So I Am a Peacemaker was a strong theme. Where do we go from here was a strong theme. And I believe that this year's theme, from many to one beloved community, will ring out to be a strong theme.
So, couple things. yeah, the themes, a lot of times, we kind of, one theme, sounds of blackness.
Oh, yeah.
My cell phone, you know, you'll have the, what is it, iTunes? And sometimes, you know, these cell phones just do what they want to do. And that song,
I can't remember that.
it'll come
We
to
in the
me in a
beat.
minute. The song just kept coming on my phone. And so we decided this should be the thing, because it would not stop. It would not stop. It would just pop up on my phone. But it was a song by Sounds of Blackness, and that was our theme a couple years ago. It'll come to me in a minute. But we read Dr. King's speeches. You know, this year I kept hearing him say, beloved community, to one beloved community. And so it took us almost an hour. We never really sat down with the whole group and tried to come up with a theme. Sometimes the themes just come up by themselves. But the group came up with this theme, and we dissected every single word to make sure that it wouldn't be misinterpreted, that it wouldn't be offensive to certain people in the community, that, you know, that it reflected Dr. King's message. And so this is how the themes come up every year. So as Stuart said, from many to one beloved community. But I wanted to also say that, you know, I think that there are a couple of things that I've heard that I agree with. And one is the fact that, you know, like Jesus Christ and, you know, so many other people, you know, we put people on these pedestals. And Dr. King has been, they say, has been put on this pedestal. So it's like young people feel as though they could never be that because he's one in a million. But Dr. King tried to express to us that we all have within us the power to love, the power to respect, the power to build community. You know, his message, what he was challenging us with was not anything that's so tremendous that we couldn't accomplish those things ourselves. So if you listen to his words, you know, review those quotes and all that kind of stuff, you realize that he was talking about what we, you know, I may not be able to do great things all the time, but with small things I can do something great, small steps or something like that. So, you know, that's the one thing. The other thing is, you know, when Dr. King first started and you know, the National Baptists, the black ministers, the older black ministers, they didn't want to have nothing to do with him, you know, because he was just too radical. A man talking about peace was too radical. But he, you know, he led marches and all that kind of stuff. And so they ended up with the Progressive National Baptists, which was a younger, more progressive group, right? And then you had Southern Christian Leadership Conference. So people have to understand, and I think that's one of the things that would be so exciting, to understand the controversy around Dr. King. People just don't know what the controversy was. Everybody wasn't following. So young people today, young people like controversy. You know, they want to know what the fight was, what was the struggle. And we have to talk about those things and talk about who was and who wasn't. I was really excited the other day because a lot of people don't agree with me, but Reverend Jesse Jackson is one of my heroes. He really is, despite what a lot of people may think or feel, he is one of my heroes. And to hear Dr. King in a speech say, and Jesse, remember, you know, to refer to him, to point him out, because he was there as a young man. You know, we do a lot of work with Dr. Ben Chavis. He was an organizer during that time. There's still people who are alive today who are old, but not that old, you know, but who can, who have first-hand stories about the struggle. We had a fight about police.
Yeah.
We
Oh
had a
man,
big fight about
we ain't
police.
finished yet.
No, we're not, because people feel like we should not have police
Former
involved in our parade. We're honoring one of our grand marshals, is former Deputy Chief Grooms. Sister girl, you gotta call her that. Chief Grooms has been so deeply embedded. She's now, you know, with the the wharf security, but I mean, she's always attended funerals. She served food the other day at a parade.
I told him, try to make
I
her
think she
sit
might have been serving food that time
at the prayer breakfast. She
at
also,
the son, no, she served
every-
food at
at the-
okay, Upshur.
She serves food at all of the events that returning citizens put together. She will be at Malik Farrakhan's Father Day event every year. She will be at Knox event every year down in Southwest, and she will be serving food. She was like that even when she was the deputy chief. One of the first things I talked about Yango pulling me into all of this celebration and commemoration of the life of Dr. King, but Yango intently pushed me and former deputy chief rooms together when I first came home and took a picture. And so that became the beginning of my relationship, and I began to learn about the content and the character of this human being. Again, back to Dr. King's theme.
But I think one way to keep him fresh is to look at all the issues that we're dealing with today and talk about the issues that he dealt with, or that not just him, but the men and women who were involved in the civil rights movement. If we continue to dissect that movement and apply it to current times and ask young people, you know, what side would you have been on? What would have been your position? Would you have followed this? That's why the essay contest is so important, because what we do is we try to test them on, or ask those questions and let them kind of deep dive into it, and then try to convince their peers on you know what would have been the position. I mean, there's no right position or wrong position. It's not. It's just yours and somebody else's.
Yes.
So, you know, I think if we can not make Dr. King, which he is to me, which is, you know, I mean, I always say, I don't know any man or woman who would give their life for me. I don't know anybody. But he did that. He knew he was going to die. He knew that he was going to die. But he decided, I'm gonna continue on this fight. I didn't ask for it, but I got it. And now that I got it, I'm gonna continue to move forward, and I know that I may not get there with you, but you have to understand where I want you to be. And I love that man for that.
Can I just jump in real quick about something? Forgive me, and this is a qualm I often have with people. Not going to generalize, but oftentimes in certain circles that I'm in, when we talk about Dr. King versus X and stuff like that, people, they like to say, yeah, Dr. King was a punk, he was nonviolent, this, that, and third. And my thing is like, I'm not going to lie to you, like, it takes a lot of courage to not hit a man back when he hits you. And like, that takes more courage than hitting him, honestly, because it's like for real, like, as a man, your pride. You know, I'm speaking for myself, you know, I'm just like, you know, I don't even like when people talk to me a certain kind of way. You know, I can't help but to react. But for Dr. King to like employ those tactics and to, you know, put his ego to the side, right, when, you know, just letting people come at him physically and, you know, whatever else, I just think is astounding, you know.
Man, that's not astounding. That's strength.
Yeah.
Man, that is,
Yeah.
I'm not that strong. I'm not that strong. That is strength. That is pure strength to be able to know that you facing all of what he stood in front of when they were trying to go across the Pettus Bridge. To look at all of the law enforcement that came out against him in the different parts of Mississippi and Alabama, to know that that's what I'm going down here to face, and to get on the train, to get on the bus, to know that at any point in time, the mode of transportation could be stopped and had been stopped on several different occasions. I watched that piece with him and Stokely. You know, I love Stokely. You know, Malcolm is my man as well. But that piece where they walking together and they talking about their different approaches to addressing what some folk were doing to other folk was powerful.
No, you know, I don't need the mic. I don't need the mic.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. Listen, first I want to commend Denise for her consistency, commend you, brother, for coming in. But see, I was there in 63. I was 12 years old and there in 63. Okay? I was inspired. So what y'all are doing is inspiring you. Well, you might not see it now, but I went on to do a whole lot of things and learn a whole lot of stuff. And in terms of Dr. King, people need to get over it. It was a strategy, and the strategy worked. That's one of the most successful strategies that King used, because he exposed the wickedness with the system.
Yeah.
And so we gotta understand that, and we gotta let our youth understand that. Doesn't mean you gotta do that, but Dr. King did sacrifice himself.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta really study what Dr. King did. In 63, let me say this. In 63, when my stepfather took me to March on Washington, everybody around town was talking about, don't go, was afraid, right? But every youth that was there was inspired unlimitedly.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you, I would have never known Malcolm like I do.
Yeah.
I would have never known Garvey like I do if I did not know King sacrificing for us and standing there, because it wasn't about him as an individual.
Yes.
A lot of times we get into the individual personality. He sacrificed himself for all African people all over the world.
Yeah.
Before the world.
Yeah.
And so you got to get deep into Dr. King.
Yeah.
And like you said, Denise, the Progressive Baptist Convention grew out of that.
Yes.
Because the Baptist Convention was old heads who were afraid of young people like Dr. King. Again, young people need to know Dr. King was a youth based on African tradition. He didn't get to 40.
Yeah.
So we need to really think out of the box when we start dealing with historical continuity.
Yes.
Y'all doing the parade is exactly what Stevie Wonder did when he came to town and said we got to have a holiday.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing King was doing when he sacrificed. He didn't even organize the march.
Yes.
He became the figure of the march.
That's right.
So we need to understand the history. And so in closing though, what y'all are doing, believe me, a parade in Southeast, every time I've gone, you gotta look at the people standing that ain't in the parade.
Yes.
They come out
Yes.
with sandwiches,
Yes.
their children.
Yes.
They are motivated. They are inspired. They don't want to see somebody running down the street with a Glock, right?
Yes.
They want to see somebody running down the street with something positive. So y'all are fighting that energy. I applaud y'all, and I always applaud
Brother say go, huh?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I look forward to seeing you out there. I'll make sure you're in that rotation.
Unfortunately, we be represented. I'll be in New York.
Ah,
I leave in
okay.
New York tonight, but we will be fully represented.
Okay, all right. So that's man powerful there. It all of this, man. I just love to be a part of the whole process. Bringing young folk out to the parade. I'm gonna have a house full of them. You know, I used to live 6 blocks away from MLK. I now live a block away from MLK. And so they gonna be all piled up in it. They already said, man. And half of them kids, I don't even know them. Oh, I forgot I was on that thing. They looking. They're my children. They're my nieces. They niece, Papa, my uncle. And so I told them, all right, y'all got the house. I ain't staying with y'all. You know, they gonna help me decorate the truck. And one year, the first year we had the flatbed, they was still decorating. We was all the way up in Living Word. So to share that with the audience so you understand, we started that year at the Rise, and we went all the way up a mile and 0.4 of a mile to Lecky School. And they were still trying to paint their little pieces and holding their little parts of the, you know, decorations up. But they enjoyed it, and they created something that'll be etched in their mind for the rest of their life. How they were on that flatbed with their little stop police, turn signs, whatever it was, love Dr. King, and they did all that. We got a bunch of pictures, so make sure y'all go to the website. I just gotta put the website out there again, www.MLKHolidayDC.org. Go to the website, look at the pictures. There's some places where you can make comments about everything that we're doing. I want to shout out some of our grand marshals. We got Moses Williams, one of the individuals who was a part of the first group of pastors and reverends who were right there with Stevie Wonder. We have Shanice Milton, posthumous. I gotta get that right. Posthumous. Young lady was doing phenomenal things about to be a journalist, like you know, and doing some phenomenal work of her own. Got slain on her way home from work. We also have the youth mayors, and I can't remember their names. Their pictures will pop up on the website sometime between now and Sunday morning. I just sent them over to our technician. We also have, who am I forgetting? We said Chief, Deputy Chief Grooms. We got the boxer. What's his name? I forgot the boxer's name. But it'll come to us probably before we get off the air. I just want y'all to know that each of these individuals who we've drawn and lifted up as grand marshals, we first look internally in the city. We look for Washingtonians who've done some things that emulate some of the stuff that Dr. King talked about. And then we try to get people who can draw other people, because we want the world to see what we're doing in terms of honoring somebody who was so great for so many.
So Sam, I just wanted to also say, because we talked a lot about young people, but like I said, we're going to honor Reverend Moses Williams. But you know, we still have a lot of elders in our midst who are just, you know, who've contributed so much to the movement, who are just forgotten. And I think as a community, we need to do a little bit more to bridging those elders to our young people so that they can hear firsthand the stories about the times that they were living down south, what it was like to live down south, what it was like to live in a segregated south, what it was like to try to strive to go to school, why they came to Washington or came up north, what it was like to come to a segregated Washington, D.C., you know, how they were able to transition and build family and build community in the city, and the struggles that they have dealt with, but nobody talks about them. And they were there. They were part of the movement. And they're dying out. They're not a part of this community like they used to be. So I think one of the things that's one reason why we're honoring Moses Williams. And, you know, we're going to have, you know, ARP and all those. I mean, now that I'm in that community.
Oh, that's right, you doing it.
Now that I'm a part of that group, you know, but I do realize, I mean, you know, my dad died early. He died at 67 years old. You know what I mean? And so that story, that legacy is not being told, and I take responsibility for that. But I think that in our community, we have a lot of elders who have so much to share about what life was like and what they did to make life better. Even though we, you know, when we talk about, you know, how bad things are right now, can you imagine how they feel? Can you imagine? But you know, they're better than they were when they came up. And last year, one of our speaker for our prayer breakfast was Reverend Tony Lee. And one thing I remember Tony Lee said was, you know, something like the folks that participate in demonstrations today are nothing like the gangsters of the past. He said our grandparents were gangsters.
Yeah.
He said when they went out to demonstrate, they knew they were putting their lives on the line. They could go to jail and be in jail for months. You know, they'd lose their jobs because they were participating in the movement. Today, you go out, you get arrested. You get arrested at 2. You're out at 4. You know what I mean? It's a different kind of a struggle. But these people really sacrificed in order to contribute to try to make this country serve us better than it did for them. And we're not, you know, you're talking about 400 years. I mean, that sounds like a long time, but to be honest, you know, we probably still have people in our community whose grandparents, or at least a great-grandparent who may have just died last year, you know, was recently freed. You know, we've only been freed since what, 1865? 1965, that's less than 150 years ago.
I know of a lot of sharecropper families, like elders who might have been, you know, who were sharecroppers at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're definitely right on that.
Jim Crow, all of that. I mean, they came through that, and that's why we have to be, I think, cognizant of the institutions. We can, you know, we get so uppity and think that, you know, I don't need the NAACP and I don't need these other organizations. But you know, when stuff gets bad, who you gonna call? A Ghostbuster? I don't think so. You know what I'm saying? You gotta call those people who have proven that they can make a difference. But we've turned our backs on our civil rights organizations. We've turned our backs on our churches. Our churches have turned their backs on each other. You know, we've turned our backs on all of the things. Schools. You know, we do an annual, Washington Forum, you know, we do an annual African American history tour.
It's coming up.
We have one coming up we're gonna do on March the 2nd, which is on Black Georgetown. But the interesting thing that I found recently before the brother died, what's his name? They used to work with Frank Smith, Harry Jones. Harry and Don Folden, I went on a tour with them, and one of the things I really never realized, but it was such a great story, is to know that when folks moved from the south to the north, or even in the south, when they built a church, they built a school.
Yep.
Those two things went hand in hand. They built a church, and we have the same things that have, if we look in Washington, I'm gonna do one of those tours called Faith and Freedom. But if you look at the churches, and what was built right next to a church was a school, because education was critical. You know, God can save you, but He can't save you if you don't know nothing. And who was teaching in those schools? Black teachers were teaching in those schools, and black teachers were teaching black history. They were teaching black kids about what's important. They were teaching them comportment. And when I say comportment, you know, we all know Mary McLeod Bethune and all these folks. I mean, we may not like it today, you know, because we try to do things our own way, but nobody's teaching our kids behavior. You know, we get mad because they act all crazy and stuff in the streets and on the buses. Nobody's telling them what's right and what's wrong. And when we were freed as black folks, somebody said, we got to teach our folks, even though it didn't work, but we got to teach them how to do, we got to teach them how to sew, we got to teach them how to cook, we got to teach them how to be self-reliant, how to be, because nobody, like my daddy used to say, ain't nobody gonna do nothing for us but us. If it is to be, it's up to me. It's two minds. And it was a reality then, and it's a reality today. And so Dr. King comes from an era, and I think that those people that come from that era need to be taught to our children. We need to challenge them to try to understand why it's important to know why these people are important. We can't just tell them. We have to help them to understand why they're important.
So it sounds like we got a project on our hands. We're a very solution-oriented show. Need a time check real quick, just in the interest. We got a question? All right, perfect. Give me 1 second. So, shout out to Queen Maureen. We're actually going to open up the floor for audience questions. We'll start off with Queen Maureen in the back, y'all.
Not necessarily a question. Greetings, y'all. More so a comment to add to what you were saying. We need to look at Booker T. Washington's model, because his model was education as well as knowing a skill. And I think our issue is these days in 2020 going into it, is that our children need to know a skill as well as be educated to read and write and do math and all of that and the technology. I think it's so important, like you were saying, to be self-sufficient. Who knows how to cook? People talking about, well, we put it in the microwave. What? You know, children still don't know that food comes from the ground.
Yes.
I mean, all of these simple things that we knew or we learned, but now it's foreign to a lot of children. So skill as well as the knowledge. That's all I wanted to say.
That brings us to another point, right? So, I was going to say something else, but I need to say this because it's hot off the press, right? So earlier you heard Denise speak about Martha's table. So one of the things that's going to happen at the end of this procession, right, is a health fair. The health fair was born maybe was it two? Is this the third health fair?
Yes.
I think this is the third health fair, right? And so this community health fair that we have at the end of the procession is about bringing service providers out of all sort, mental health, physical health, whatever have you. Come on out, set up a table, and talk to this whole entourage of people at the end of this parade about what you do. And for those of you who can do some stuff on site, do that. But my point wasn't about that. I just wanted you to know that there's a health fair at the end. But Denise talked about Martha's table. And so what Martha's table is doing is that this year is the first year that we have a, what do we call it? I forgot what we call it. It's a, so there will be some fresh food, right? There'll be some stuff straight out in the garden, and there'll be some people inside the Rise building, which is 2700 MLK, Southeast Washington, D.C. That's the end of the route for the parade. The health fair will be in the Gateway Pavilion. Now get this, the addresses go up like this, but some kind of way the Gateway is 2730 and the Rise is 2700. But in any event, inside that Rise Center, they trying to keep us confused. But they're going to be doing something with how you can do something with fresh vegetables and giving out samplings and stuff like that. And Denise talked about how where the church was, there was a school, and what she didn't talk about, that there was always child care in them spaces for the little ones so that the older ones could learn, because they was teaching people that were pretty much adults how to read and write so that they could go home and teach their children how to read and write initially, right? And so there's going to be a space inside the Rise for reading the young children. We're going to bring this thing full circle with this parade eventually. And I just wanted to share that in response to that.
Hey y'all, let's clap for that, y'all, man. People eating well, really seeing plants come off the ground. You know, we really got to get back to that. Especially, you know, we talking about this government shutdown, food lines and all that. I'm just saying, y'all, it's the beginning of something that's gonna just, learn to be self-sufficient, y'all. All the signs are out there. But please, listen.
You know, Sam, I want to say also, which is another story hopefully we'll be doing in the Informer, but we recognize that seniors in Washington are having some real food challenges. And this shutdown has nothing to do with it. And so we covered or went to a senior wellness center where folks have, in Southeast, they have a, what do you call it?
The circulator.
No, they have a farm. There's a farm.
Yes.
And so what they do is, you know, they grow the vegetables, they take the vegetables to the senior wellness center. The seniors come, and what our photographer acknowledged or realized was that these seniors really depend on this food. And they're still using, they're still canning. They're buying this food and canning this food because they don't know, you know, when they're going to be able to buy food, and they need to have food in their households. Now, I don't know how to can food, but I certainly would love to know how to do that. But see, I'd be doing it right now, thank God, you know, as, you know, a learning lesson, not out of necessity. But I certainly need to know in case it becomes a necessity, because now it is a necessity for so many people who, you know, like the sister said back there, aren't cooking. You know, so you try to buy fresh fruits and vegetables, but they don't last. But you need to know how to buy these things and secure them, save them so that when hard times do come, you still got food. Yeah. And what can you do with it? So, you know, there's a lot going on in our communities, which, we're dealing with as a, it's a struggle, but it's also a learning lesson. Sewing.
Yeah.
Sewing.
I got a button I need to put on my suit.
Sewing,
You put that,
knitting,
sewing, knitting, crocheting, all of that. Technology, we were someplace this evening. Technology always fails you.
Yep.
Always fails you. We had the problem tonight. We were at another event this evening. Somebody wanted to put the video up. The video didn't work. Videos never work. They never. I don't care where you are. You're always going to have a problem. You got to practice it 25 times and pray that it still works on the 26th. But, there's some things that we do when we use our hands that we know as long as our hands are working and we have the supplies that we need, we can produce a product. And so, I think kind of getting back to that and helping to understand what we've been able to, the skills and the knowledge that we've had that has allowed us to get this far by faith, we need to come back to it. So, all that comes from Dr. King and my involvement with the
She just reminded me of something I wanted to say earlier. When she was talking about nobody was doing this stuff, nobody was doing this stuff, I wanted to jump in and say, hold up, we just left our program to come here where we had two singers talk about their experience in the city. One a Washingtonian and one a transplant from New York. But they were both spent years toiling in this city for black folk.
And everybody knows, if they don't, they should know Absalom Jordan.
Absalom Jordan and Philip Pennell were part of a program that we helped to sponsor as part of our series of programs to turn the heat up and get people fired up about Dr. King's commemoration. And so I just want to lay that out there and say we doing it. So somebody's doing it. We doing it, and we're gonna continue to do everything we do with the parade. We're gonna try to keep doing as long as we're doing it. We kind of talked a little bit about what happens if we not doing it, But we're gonna keep talking about how we do it, and hopefully we bring in the right young folk that catch the fever that want to keep on pushing to make sure that people understand the struggles that were, the struggles that are, and the struggles we know gonna come.
So let's give them a hand, family. Let's give our guests a hand. I got one more question, just to wrap up tonight. Once again, I appreciate y'all for coming out and really just sharing this platform with us. I think it was a very, very fruitful discussion. First of all, I have no expectations when I do stuff like this because I feel like when you want to have it one way and it goes the other way, you just grow frustrated. And in my 3 years doing this, I've just learned to go with the flow. You do your research, you ask the right questions, and you pick the right guests who can just talk about it and who are very charismatic. And you two, y'all fit the mold. So I appreciate y'all being here tonight. The last question that I want you guys to answer, and I want the audience to just reflect on pretty much, is a question about the longevity of the Peace Walk and the parade. Just going back to what I said earlier about other functions that have gone to the wayside in recent years. Georgia Avenue Day, for example. 2011, man, that was a great year before, it just, So as far as just keeping it going, and this is the part here where I would like for you guys to just talk about the organization piece. Because once again, this is a show where we do stuff. I'm tired of people being like, well, you're the leader, you got a platform, what are you going to do? It's like, nah, it ain't just me, it's everybody. We just got to coordinate, we got to coordinate, So the question is, that I have for y'all, right? What's the organizing piece around that? Just maintaining longevity. And if you guys can briefly, talk about that. What's the strategy going forward?
So, Sam, I don't have an answer to that. I mean, the parade started off as an event that came out of the office of the council member. So, for the years that William Rolark was council member for Ward 8, it came out of her constituent services office. It went from her to Edie Whittington, from Edie Whittington to Sandy Allen, and then from Sandy Allen to Marion Barry. It came out of their offices. And when Marion Barry attempted to sort of change the date, you know, I mean, he looked at a day like we're gonna look at on Monday and said it's too cold. And so he moved it to April the 4th, around the time of Dr. King's assassination, and we had a snowstorm. So, you know, as
There
someone,
was 2 snowstorms.
right, 2 snowstorms.
One from across the country saying, "What you fools doing?"
Right.
And then the physical snowstorm.
And so if someone said to me, sent me an email today and said, why don't we cancel this thing and do it on President's Day? And I said, you can't predict weather in DC. You can't. You either do it on the day that the nation has decided that this is the day we're gonna honor Dr. King, or we just don't do it. We don't change the date. And if it's not too bad, which some folks are saying Monday's gonna be too bad, but you know, we'll see how it works. And so, you know, some have said we need to create a 501c3 and an organization, which we're thinking about. But that doesn't guarantee that a parade's going to, or any kind of event's going to happen. It really comes from the heart of the people. And so, you know, I published a newspaper that'll be in its 55th year. I think we got here this far because, you know, I followed my father's passion. I'm now trying to figure out how to segue that to the next generation. Our institutions, you know, very few institutions last beyond the second generation. And so, you know, if you get to a third or a fourth, you're doing pretty well. And so we look at, as I said before, you know, we're looking at all of our organizations, NAACP, Urban League, National Council of Negro Women. We don't really hear much about them anymore now that Dr. Height has passed. But they're hopefully they're coming back. So, you know, you have your good years, your bad years, your on years, your off years. If we have created or established an event that somebody's going to have to live up to. And if I'm gone tomorrow and Stuart's gone tomorrow, somebody's going to say, we got to have a parade next year. That's what we did that's what we did before. We didn't have a parade because we didn't know how to do a parade. We just said we're going to do something on this avenue. So I can't say that there will be a parade 50 years from now. I can't say there's going to be a peace walk 50 years from now. I hope that Martin Luther King Avenue will continue to be Martin Luther King Avenue. Because, you know, somebody might decide we're going to tear down whatever, we're going to call it something else, you know, which could happen. I mean, that's the reality. So, you know, we each, it's important for us to press on and to stress the importance of our history, our culture, the people who made things possible. We've got to continue that, and hopefully people that come in that generation will see the importance of saying, you know, what those people used to do back then, I remember who they were, but they used to do such and such. We need to continue to do that, or we need to bring it back. So I pray on it, you know. We could organize ourselves to death. Like I said, we put a nonprofit together, which I've been in, you know, where we've done some ad hoc stuff, and somebody says, we're going to create a organization, 501c3. They took the money, spent the money, and nothing's happened since. Nothing has happened. So that doesn't guarantee a thing. So, you know, Dr. King's legacy hopefully will not die, and how people want to acknowledge that for years to come, it's up to them. It's up to them.
Respect.
That's a tough piece. People say, man, why y'all don't do it on the mall? I say, ain't nobody the Martin Luther King Avenue down on the mall. This is about Dr. King. The rightful place for it is on the thoroughfare that has been named after King. And if we look across the country, wherever we find the thoroughfare that's named after Dr. King, we find more people that look like us. And oftentimes, it may not be the best of environments, but that is the environment that needs the message of King the most. The other thing that I am reminded of, that I even sometimes don't readily take knowledge of, is how things change. How when some people decide they want something that happen to belong to black folk. And if we look at any period of time in history, the first thing I thought about when Denise was talking about hoping that Martin Luther King Avenue remains Martin Luther King Avenue, I started thinking about the pyramids and the sphinxes and all of those ancient relics that lost all of their features due to destruction. How people try to erase the fact that we were there. And so I'm hoping and trusting. Right before it came off Denise's lip, I touched my chest. To do what we do, you have to have people who have the heart and the passion to do it. And so somewhere in this, I'm confident that we're going to find some younger folk than we are, who are going to have the heart and the passion, and hopefully we find them before we are not too old to transfer the ability.
Next year.
Yes, it is. So that's where we are. Hold on.
I just want to say one thing that really touched me. There was an article that someone sent to me today with Bernice King, who said that she has never really cried on the holiday named after her dad. But this year, she finds herself really sad because every institution that's been named after Dr. King is managed by the National Park Service. And the shutdown has those institutions shut down. Now, we did talk to Harry Johnson, who built, was responsible with the Alphas to build the Martin Luther King Memorial. And every year on the holiday, he has an event. He lays a wreath and the Park Service has a program. He told me at 9:45 on Monday, they will still lay the wreath, but there will be no program. So fortunately, we've been affected by it as well. We start our program, the parade lineup is in the Anacostia Park. We were just informed today,
We can't use the
you
park.
can't use the park. Coast Guard is a part of our parade.
Big park.
They will not be participating. Smithsonian participates in the parade. They will not be a part of the parade. So, and there are other institutions. We probably will not have an honor guard this year, unless MPD puts one there. And again, if I can give a shout out to the mayor, I like the way that she's been challenging this president about what she thinks he ought to be doing and the city's doing to try to make sure that life is somewhat normal for people who are federal employees. But this is having a major impact on the celebration of Dr. King's birthday. And it's unfortunate that Bernice King will be doing her best to participate in celebrations. I really wish we could have thought about inviting her here, because we're gonna have a good time on Monday, regardless how
That's it.
cold it's gonna be.
Oh, that's what I didn't say. Hold on, I gotta say this before we go off the air.
Right. Now, and the chief, the fire chief, the deputy fire chief, they will be down there when they lay the wreath. They said as soon as they lay the wreath, Stu, we coming over there to you. Where can we park? I said, oh, no, I ain't gonna say that. Cause I being messed up. I told them I got them on the parking. But when they called this morning after we did the television thing this morning, we were riding back to Southeast together, and Denise got the call that someone had put the rumor out there that the parade was canceled. We canceled the parade. I said, I didn't cancel no parade. Who? And so Denise handled that call. I got a call, and I said, let me say for the record, the consensus of the group that puts together this annual commemoration has not decided to cancel anything. We believe that we are going to do what we have done over the course of the last few years, and that is have a parade and a peace walk. And I said to people, we're gonna do a Ray Charles. They said, what's that? I said, did you see the movie? You had to see the movie. See, when the guy say Ray, your slip is hanging, Ray said, look, man, I don't care what happened, whatever way it go, however it happened and everything, it's gonna be all right, because we're gonna make it do what it do. So we're gonna make it do what it do on Monday. We're gonna have a parade. Tell them that.
Hey, I like it. I like that. Let's end on that very, very positive, confident, enthusiastic, and powerful note, y'all. You know, Denise Rolark Bonds, Stuart Anderson, co-chairs of the MLK Day Peace Walk and Parade Committee. Monday morning, y'all gotta be out there. As a matter of fact, we got Division 330 of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. They're gonna be in the parade. We got, give them a hand, y'all, give them a hand. Yep, Division 330 in the house. I wish I'm also a member. And you guys in Banner City are also members. You just gotta become due-paying members. So it's up to y'all, you know. Please,
Melvin
brother.
Dill's coming out. Melvin
Okay,
Dill's
Melvin
coming
Dill's
out.
coming out. Let's give him a hand, y'all. Let's give him a hand. You know.
We're waiting for that movie on Marcus.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're waiting for the movie.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So, you guys be on the lookout for information about our next All Eyes on DC function. That's for Black History Month. We got something coming up in the mix. A lot of y'all, matter of fact, all y'all are on the listserv, so y'all definitely get it. As always, it's a pleasure being here with y'all. Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks to our guests for running the marathon throughout the entire day and giving us their time at the end of the day. I know y'all could have been anywhere else, but I'm very happy that y'all were here. And I'm very happy that, and I'm very sure that they're happy you were here too, y'all.
Thank you for staying strong and keeping that parade going.
All right, family, love y'all. Peace and blessings, y'all.